It is the most successful media franchise on the planet, a universe of creatures, games, and stories woven into the childhood of millions. But every empire has an origin point, and this one didn't begin in a sleek corporate boardroom. Hey, welcome to my channel and welcome to the first video of this series called Against the Odds. In this series, I'm going to be telling the story of the most successful companies in the world, and the story of today is about the Pokémon Company Inc. So let's get into it. This story begins with a boy, his box, and later a dream that almost broke him. This is Satoshi Tajiri. As a kid, he wasn't obsessed with arcades or cartoons. He was a collector, an entomologist, which means that he liked to play with insects. Not play, he liked to collect insects. So his pastime was to catch these insects and then trade them with his friends. This was his passion. His playground was the ditches and empty lots of Mashida, Tokyo. But as the city expanded, he saw his playground disappeared because basically it got paved over. And yeah, that sense of loss never left him. Years later, as an adult, Tajiri was running a small magazine, a video game magazine, that later was going to become a developer. This magazine was called Game Freak. And then, one day, he sees it, the Nintendo Game Boy and its link cable. Everyone else saw this console, a portable video game console, as just a machine that you can use and play by yourself most of the time, or from time to time you could connect it with someone else through the link cable and just basically fight. I don't know if which video game exactly, I didn't search that part, but I guess it was something like Mortal Kombat or something similar. The thing is that most people saw it like that, a solitary machine that was made for time to time just allow two players to fight, and that was it. But Tajiri saw a digital host, a tunnel, a way for creatures to travel from one world to another. And in a flash, he envisioned a new game, Capsule Monsters. A world where kids could explore, discover creatures, and most importantly, trade them. He wanted to recreate that forgetting feeling of connection, of sharing a discovery with your friends, which was something that was lost back then, and probably is lost now again. Anyway, Tajiri knew that he wanted to do this project, but he also knew that ideas are cheap, and what is important is the execution. So he started to work on it, and he decided to pitch his idea to Nintendo. And this is where Tajiri's vision faced one of his biggest obstacles, a massive one: Nintendo itself. Because for 1 year, Tajiri was pitching this idea to Nintendo and they said no. He showed them prototypes, he pitched several times, he pleaded to them to let them develop this project for the Game Boy. But they said no, many times. Many times he tried, many times he failed. And then, after this year, a miracle. The legend himself, Shigeru Miyamoto. He's no one else but the creator of Mario, The Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong, and other games. He saw something in Tajiri's passion, he saw something in his project, and I don't know, I guess genius recognizes genius because he decided to become Tajiri's mentor, and he was his shield in Nintendo. It was incredible. Because of Miyamoto's advocacy, the project got the green light. It got renamed from Capsule Monsters to Pocket Monsters. And actually, Pocket Monsters is the actual name of Pokemon. Until today, still today, Pokemon, their official real name is Pocket Monsters, but this name is only used in Japan, and that's why probably some of you don't know about it. And Pokemon is the abbreviation. So yes, Pocket Monster, Pokemon. Anyway, let's keep going. The project got the green light, and this was it. But it wasn't a victory. It was just a lifeline thrown into a storm, a 6-year storm. The standard game development at the time was about 2 years, and Pokémon would take 6 years, and it nearly killed Game Freak in the process. The budget that Nintendo gave to Game Freak was for a short project, but months passed and they became years, and it was hard. The only way that Game Freak managed to keep the lights on was through other projects, but was external projects that they accepted from time to time, little small projects that were out of this world, of the Pokemon world. So that was also kind of a distraction because they couldn't concentrate on the main project, which was Pokemon. They couldn't work entirely in it because they were trying to get some money from other sources in order to keep developing Pokemon. It was complicated. As for Tajiri, he was so committed that he decided to stop receiving a salary. The stories say that he basically survived on cheap meals from McDonald's, and his finances were supported by his skeptical but very, very supportive father. So we could say that the creator of a future billion-dollar company, a billion-dollar franchise, was literally at the moment living on fast food in order to support his dream. The technology was fighting against them, and it was winning. The Game Boy was a minimalist machine, and Tajiri wanted to cram 151 creatures into it. And each one of these creatures had evolutions, moves, and complex battle stats. Even the logic required for trading, which basically was transferring one creature from one cartridge to another, it was a programming nightmare. The first prototypes, the early builds, were riddled with glitches, crashes, and agonizing slowness. So, after 5 years of crunch, of staring at the same seemingly impossible code, the human breaking point arrived. Key programmers were exhausted and they believed that the project was doomed, so they quit. They walked out. Imagine that. Your team, the people that believed in your project, in your vision, they quit because they didn't see an end. That was hard. That was hard for Tajiri. Basically, he was left with a half-finished digital world. And his response? He locked in. He took on their workloads. He put together a new team where most of them were not official programmers, so they had to learn. Programming for days on end with a focus that bordered mania. This was no longer just a project, it was a test of will. Even the core idea was a hard sell, releasing 2 versions at the same time of the same game. For many in Nintendo and many in the press, this was a scam. They thought it was a scam. They said, okay, this is just a cynical cash grab because there's no way you are releasing. Why? What's the point of that? But for Tajiri, he didn't saw it as a business strategy. It was the entire philosophical point of the game. Because according to him, if you didn't trade with a friend who had the other version, the game was broken. It was a huge risk for Nintendo. They were betting everything on a mechanic that no one else understood. And finally, in February of 1996, after 6 years of struggle, Pocket Monsters was released. And the world did not change. Not immediately. The sales were slow, steady, but slow, and the press was lukewarm. It seemed like the culmination of a dream and a quiet failure. But Tajiri's bet was not in the advertising or the marketing. It was in human nature. And that was an intelligent bet because across Japan in the schoolyards, something magical was happening. One kid caught a Vulpix and his friend had a grow light. the link cable connected, the trade was completed. That spark of connection became a wildfire. Word of mouth among children did what advertising could not do. The games started to sell, and then the second lifeline arrived. The planned anime series debuted in 1997, and it gave the world characters, heart, and a story. It gave us the determined Ash Ketchum. And very interesting, I found that he was named after Satoshi Tajiri in Japanese. I don't know, I guess his name in Japanese is probably Satoshi Tajiri or something similar. I think Ash Ketchum is only for outside of Japan, especially Western market. Anyway, the series also gave us the electric mascot Pikachu, whose personality was not born in the game, but in this show. It gave us the hilariously inept Team Rocket and many other characters that we also love. The anime didn't just adapt the game, it exploded its world, making it a daily narrative adventure. And then the myths started. They took over. Suddenly people were saying that there were a glitch in the programming, and this glitch was called missing number or missing n. And this glitch created a forbidden creature. Rumors spread of a secret legendary creature hidden in the code, Mew. The world of Pokémon felt alive, vast, and mysteriously broken. It wasn't just a game, it was an unsolvable mystery shared between friends. What followed was Pokémania, a cultural tsunami. The games sold millions, the cards came out, and they caused riots. It wasn't a hit, it was a phenomenon. In April of 1998, Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures is the company that made the cards, the Pokémon cards. These three companies joined forces and created the Pokémon Company, Inc. And at the center of it all, it was Satoshi Tajiri. He had won. He had changed global culture. But the cost was immense. The years of human pressure took their toll. Tajiri, who was always shy, retreated from the spotlight. He was later diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and I think this gives us a new lens through which his intense singular focus makes new sense. He became the Howard Hughes of gaming, the reclusive genius who built a universe and then stepped back into the shadows. Pokémon succeeded against every conceivable odd, against financial ruin, technical limits, team desertion, and industry skepticism. It succeeded because one man's childhood memory was so powerful, so vivid, that he was willing to risk everything to share it. He didn't just want to make a game, he wanted to give a new generation the thrill of exploration, the joy of a shared secret, the connection of a trade. In a world that was growing more disconnected, he built a world that forced you to connect. And that is how you catch them all.